Crash Bros are going to be disappointed once again because the May real estate stats are in. They're good. Stay tuned. All right now, so we've all heard all the people predicting how we were going to have a collapse in new home building, home prices, inventory glut, all of those things that have not come to pass. May was kind of going to be the breaking point because that's when we're starting to hit our anniversary for the peak median sales price of Ada County. So today I want to cover a few things. I want to look at where we're at compared to a year ago. Last May we hit a peak of $602,250, something like that. And we certainly are down from that. At one point, I believe in January, we're down below 500,000, almost down into the 480s for the median price. But now we've climbed out of that hole, and now I believe we're only down 11%. We're going to look at the hard numbers in just a second. But I also want to take a good look at the inventory count, how many homes were actually for sale. Because, again, we started off January north of 150, 160% from the previous January. So if the market was going to be horrible and the crash was coming and all the other stuff, we should still be at 160% plus in inventory, and we're actually not, and I'll show you that in a second. We're going to talk about price, median price, where we're at compared to last year, where the peak was last May, inventory, where we were last May, where we were last January, where we are right now, and also where we think it's going, because we don't talk about that too much. We've always said that there's not going to be a crash, there's not going to be a huge inventory glut, there's too many people that are just in great positions as far as housing costs, the equity they have in their home, and their credit ratings. So let's jump into all of this, but first off, we want to talk about the actual real estate stats. So let's jump into that. And here we are in Ada County, and I'm only going to look at Ada County today. I don't want to dive into all the different counties and cities because it's better to do a macro view right now. Our closed sales are down 21%, 21.8%. Last May, which was the peak of the market from a median price standpoint, we closed 894 units. This year, we only closed 699, down again, 21.8%. Median sales price. Now, this is important. Last May was the peak, 602,250. Right now, we're at 534,900, which is a shrinkage or a contraction, if you will, of 11.2%. It is double digits, but just barely. Definitely in a far better position than you would think if you were to read Redfin, which talks about the Austin and Boise bubble markets collapsing just last month even, or the study that came out of Florida Atlantic University. They popped that out saying how we were overpriced by 72% and all this other nonsense. Again, if that were true, we would have crashed and we would be down 50, 60, 70%, but we're not. Taking a look at that, again, 11.2% down, days on market, you would expect that to come up with interest rates where they are and with the lack of inventory that we have. So days of market have come up 157%, which by itself is a very scary number, but in reality, we added, 3 weeks to it. All right, so instead of 2 weeks, now it's taken 5. That's actually getting close to what a normal market's like anyway, so I'm okay with that. Pending sales, since we have considerably less inventory and considerably less closed sales, we should have considerably less pendings, and we do have that as well. We're down almost 30% on that, 28.1%. Again, that's more a combination of affordability between current prices, interest rates, so the cost of money, the cost of acquisition, and the lack of inventory. So now we get back to inventory. Last May, we had 1,520 units, which was still a very, very low number. If we go back to 21, I believe that was the absolute low number as far as how many units we had in any given May, but 22 was pretty low itself. And this May, we had 1,259 units, a 17% decline. So with 17% less inventory, that number by itself, it feels like, if you're in the business, it feels like we're down about 20% as far as inventory count. But we're actually down only 17%. But I want to jump over really quick and look at the market report for January of 2023. And if we come over here and you look at inventory, and inventory is all I want to talk about, just right here. Highlighting everything, I just want to highlight inventory. We were up 165%, so it was actually higher than I thought. Up 165% over the previous year, just in January of this year. So January 2023 was 165% higher in inventory than January 2022. This was also during the peak contraction that we had. And when I say that, I'm talking about that we actually, we were going through all the shock and awe, if you will, of the huge rate increases that everybody's saying, oh my gosh, the market's going to crash. We jumped up to over 7% there towards the end of October, which really tapped the brakes on everybody. It's the biggest, I think it's actually the most aggressive series of rate hikes in the shortest period of time, possibly in the Fed's history, but certainly the most and the most aggressive, both in quantity and how big they were. Definitely in the last 40 years, but they may have been the worst ever. But anyway, the net effect of that on the market was to really hit the brakes hard. All the buyers got on the sidelines saying, oh, I remember how bad the last Great Recession was. I don't want to get burned twice, so I'm going to stop. And conversely, all the sellers were saying, I don't want to miss out. They'd been saying, well, I'll wait one more year and get even more money for the house. And they realized, oh, that's not going to happen. We better get on the market. So you had a big slug of inventory come on the market. You had buyers pull back at the same time. So you had those two forces going back and forth. So everything dropped quickly. Prices were coming down aggressively. Days on market shot up through the roof. It was a very, very bad time. So that all contributes to why we were so over inventoried, if you will. We had 165% of the previous year. So jumping back into May, again, inventory went from 165% over to 17.2% under. Our months of supply a year ago was 1.7 months. Now we're only at 1.9 months. So we've only come up 10% in months of supply. So again, what is considered a balanced market, if you will. Balanced markets is supposed to be 6 months of inventory. And to be honest, in the last 20 years, other than when inventory was either going up through 6 months going into the Great Recession or coming out of 6 months coming out of the Great Recession, I honestly can't remember a time that I've seen a stable 6 months of supply, probably since the mid-90s, actually, going back, that's 30 years ago. And I'm speaking as an investor. That's the last time I think I really saw 6 months worth of inventory. And then, since 9/11, I don't know that we've ever had a normal real estate market since then. It's either been really bad, really good, or transitioning between the two. It's just, part of it is the Fed interfering. And interfering is probably the wrong word, but when they manipulate interest rates up or down, trying to goose the market or retard the market or whatever they're trying to do, we have whiplash. And that's what keeps us from having a normal, quote unquote, real estate market, where you have an equal level of supply and demand. I don't know how to fix that with the Fed involved, and I don't know how the Fed's going to get uninvolved. It's too connected to it at this point. But with all that said, and with all the doom and gloom that's been posted out there about how Boise is going to crash now, it's a frothy, bubbly market and all that, it hasn't. And that's the good news. The bad news is that it's still a very expensive market. I mean, it is what it is. And there are so many angles on this depending on who you talk to. It's like all these dang Californians and all this stuff. And then the Californians say, well, you can't buy what's not for sale, which is a true statement. But who's going to sell their house for less on purpose when they can sell it for more? That's not human nature. So regardless of how we got here, we're here. And it is an affordability issue, sorry about that, for local Idahoans. And I don't have an easy fix for that. Again, the good news is that the market's stable price-wise. We're not really seeing huge contractions in price for everything we just went to only be down 11, 12% between last May, which was our peak, and today. That's almost miraculous, to be honest. You look at Austin, they're down far more than we are. And they were our quote-unquote poster child twin as far as the bubbly, horrible market that was overpriced and all the people were moving for remote work. We're not seeing that. What we are seeing that's different right now than it was from a year ago or even 2 years ago is we're not seeing the remote workers coming in. So that's going to help somewhat with the pricing, keeping the pricing from jumping out of control. But here's the part nobody's really talking about. Well, I have been, but I'll just repeat myself again. The pent-up demand right now is amazing. I mean, honestly, we have more pent-up demand, buyer demand, than we've had probably in 40 years. Because you look at Gen Y, Gen Z, millennials as a group, and you've heard me say this, it's bigger than the boomers by far. Right now, between the ages 20 and 40, it's 60, 70 million people. I just saw the 2022 census estimates just came out today. And, it's north of 60 million people. It's a huge portion of the buying public. And a lot of those people are sidelined right now, partially by fear, partially by affordability. They can't either afford the cost of money or the cost of the home, or they've been told by all their friends and family who they trust not to buy because it's going to be another Great Recession and the market's going to tank. And here's the reality. Is it possible? Yeah. It absolutely is possible. I mean, let's look at some of the extremes that could happen. The dollar could collapse. Not quite sure what could do that, but dollar collapses, all bets are off. We're back into another Great Recession. We go to war with China. It's a stretch, but it's more of a reality today than it was 5 years ago. With the war between Russia and Ukraine, Putin could go nuclear. That would certainly cast a pall on everything and disrupt the financial global markets. China could default on all the debt that it's carrying, and that would throw global markets. So all those things which are on the far side of something you could realistically expect could happen, and that would crash the market. But short of that, I think what we're going to see, and it's one of the few crystal ball predictions I make, so write this down, is that with all this pent-up demand, all these young people, I say young people, sub 40-year-olds or sub 42-year-olds, wanting to buy homes, have not bought a home yet. They're smart people as a rule. They understand the greatest way to build your personal net worth is through real estate. Has been going back generations, and it will continue to be the same type things. You can leverage it, you can write it off, the interest you pay on it. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons it helps build your net worth. As soon as interest rates start coming down again, and I think I used to think the key tipping point was 5%, but now I think it's 6%. As soon as interest rates get very close to 6% or below 6%, you're going to see a rush on two ways. Number one, you're going to see all this buyer demand in there, and prices are going to pop a little bit. And then you're going to see the inventory follow. The inventory is actually going to start coming back on the market. All the people who missed out in the fall of 2022 when the market just locked up, and then they just pulled off the market because they knew it wasn't a good time to sell, they're going to come back on the market. So you're going to see two things happen. Interest rates are going to come down to around 6%, maybe crawl just below 6%. Buyer demand is going to shoot up, so the houses on the market, when that happens, are going to pop, and that's going to draw more inventory in, which will help sate more buyer demand, or the existing buyer demand, if you will. So we are going to see prices pop as soon as the rates get down 6, maybe just a hair below 6. I didn't think that was the case last year, but I think at this point, getting below 5% again, only bad things are going to make that happen in the foreseeable future in the next 3 to 5 years. I just don't see how it normally settles down that far. I certainly see how it floats between 5 and 6%, maybe a hair under 5%, between 4.75 and 5, maybe. But short of that, 5 to 6 is probably going to be the new normal, with 6 to 7 being the new normal in times of economic uncertainty. So that's where we're at. So to recap, median price is up. We're up to 534,900. Back in January, we were down below 490. We were 480 something. Inventory, which in January was 165% of the previous January, is down 17% from the previous May. Now, you always get a bump in summer, I understand that, but to go from 165% over down to 17% below tells me that all the sellers are sitting on the sidelines right now. And again, it's because they have a very low cost for their housing. Property taxes, I mean, everybody who got their Ada County tax bill a couple weeks ago, I mean, my goodness, you got like between a 20 and 30% shave off the property taxes due. And if you hadn't had your homestead exemption in 2022 and you were just coming into the first time in 2023, it's like Merry Christmas in April or May. So these are good things, moving in the right direction. The fundamentals are strong, and there's a lot of good things to celebrate here. The downside is that affordability is very high in Treasure Valley right now, and actually most of Idaho. The reality is that's not going to change significantly going forward. So you may see lenders come out with new products. Maybe people have to look at different lending products. Maybe they have to investigate ARMs. Maybe they have to investigate a 15-year versus a 30, although usually the cost doesn't pencil out that if you got a problem with a 30, you can't afford a 15. There's just different products you got to look at. And we may see more intergenerational housing situations where their parents are living with them again, or some of the kids move in with their parents to save money until they can buy a place. We'll see. And also, we're going to see more housing come out. There seems to be a lot more multifamily housing being built in Ada County right now. It's necessary. It's needed. There's quite a few complexes going up in Meridian. I've seen some in Boise. There's talk of one in Eagle. I haven't seen it yet. Certainly in Star, and Nampa has quite a few going up as well. So we'll see more of those coming on as condos and townhouses. Pricing-wise, we got to see where they are. A lot of the HOAs eat up the affordability thing on the acquisition side because you get hit with a $200 or $400 a month HOA fee. It becomes unaffordable again. So we'll see how that goes. Time will tell. But all in all, we're happy with the May real estate stats. If you like what you saw, please subscribe to our channel. If you have questions, you'd like to see us cover another topic, or if you want us to go deeper into something like this, leave a comment below. We'll be happy to address it. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.